money to a nonprofit foundation, then you can reduce that from the tax you pay. And so there's been an explosion there are thousands of foundations. Everything from assisting high school sophomores in their social problems to helping the press in other countries, like Soros. He uses that tax stuff too. And so, in fact, as a percentage of the aid given for free press, I think you'd find probably that there's a great deal of private or foundation money, like the Knight Foundation and so on, compared to what the government is giving. I don't know if that's true in other countries. It's probably less true. So I'm not too pessimistic about it.
You've been associated with the Committee to Protect Journalists for a long time.
Yes.
Has that changed? Has the group of people changed that are being protected? Or should
yes,
be protected?
yeah. When we started in the early 80s, it was because of the wars in Central America that Reagan was pushing and so on. It was quite a small organization. When the Soviet Union fell and the Berlin Wall and all of this happened, suddenly we were inundated with requests for help because in all of the Soviet client states, suddenly it was not so controlled anymore. And the press, we were talking earlier about how some people just have to be journalists, even if they're going to hang them up by their thumbs. So that was happening. And the press was not particularly skilled, and they gave a lot of excuses to the people to throw them in jail for saying horrible things about the leaders without reporting the fact. And so we were then having a lot of calls for help in places like Ethiopia and all these former Soviet places. That has sort of, certainly in a place like Central Europe, that's really stabilized. We don't get that kind of. Now, the biggest increase, there are two big areas. In the area of people getting killed for their journalism, these are mainly taking place in drug areas, like Mexico and so on. And the people getting killed are not, years ago maybe the government was putting them in jail. But that's not the case now. Now it's private criminals. They try to scare the journalists. If the journalists write, they punish them by killing them, or they kill one once in a while just to sort of send a message. And so they induce self-censorship. So that's one large area. The other area is blogging. The largest single group being abused by governments are bloggers. So we have criminals and governments. And we're just now trying to cope with the challenge of the bloggers. We're not quite sure how we're going to do that, but we have to do it.
It's usually individuals who are not protected by an organization.
Right. They're not protected. Often they have an axe to grind. I mean, they're much more aggressive than the newspaper reporter, who's kind of boring maybe, and the editor doesn't let them say it. But, these guys are all out there. They say whatever they want. And so they're making a lot of enemies. And they don't shut up. And so they kill them or they, jail them.
How could journalists help these guys?
Well, you could send money to the Committee to Protect Journalists. Well, it's really, you have to do it through organizations, I think. CPJ is one. There are several other groups, or some other groups. And I think they should get together, if they're in a union in Europe, they should ask the union to devote some of its resources to this. And basically what we do at the Committee to Protect Journalists is a combination of lobbying diplomatically. Now it's going to be good with Obama. We'll have a lot more support. We can lobby the State Department and, expect them to they'll not only listen, but, if we say, please tell, that evil dictator there, you don't like it, they might even tell him that. I remember when I went to Eritrea for the committee during the Bush years. Eritrea is a really special case. They have no journalists. They have no journalists because they all disappeared like that. We think they may be in like work camps or something, but they just dematerialized. So I spent a couple of weeks there with two people investigating. And we left. I got home, about a week later, Donald Rumsfeld was visiting Eritrea, which is strategically located in the Horn of Africa and everything. So at the airport press conference, someone said, Secretary Rumsfeld, what do you think about these journalists who disappeared? He said, oh, that's an internal matter. We have nothing to do with that. So we're hoping the Obama people won't do that. And we'll bring diplomatic pressure. And then also, we obviously have to organize the bloggers somewhat so that they're more aware of, so they have to have some personal red lines. I mean, if you say someone is sleeping with his children and his dog, you know, and you don't have the facts, that's not too good. You shouldn't do that, you know.
Sure.
But we don't want to induce self-censorship. Maybe we can help them become a little more professional in their reporting.
So I mean, this is a very traditional, established interest group.
Our group, CPJ.
Yes.
Definitely.
So you see, in the industry, you see a generational change. Is it different people? Will journalists be journalists, however old they are?
Oh, I see. You know, when I was a young journalist, I did feel like I was different from the older journalists. They were much more establishment-oriented, and some of them took money from politicians, and, you know, we were very self-righteous, and we wouldn't do that, and we hated the war in Vietnam, and we were skeptical of government, so there was a real generational shift. And I think that's happening now. I don't know what it is, that's the problem. I can't describe, I can say things are changing, there's a new generation and it's different. I don't know, I do know from looking at the students that they're much more interested in helping others and sharing, and much more idealistic than 10 years ago, which is good, because my generation was idealistic. Then came all of the yuppies and the boomers and the George Bush get-rich-quick types. Now we're going back to the more idealistic. So I would assume that will have a lot to do with it. And then also, because of these websites, there'll be no control of their impulses. If they want to, let's all fight for babies in Africa or something, then they'll do it. You won't have some nasty old editor saying, that's a lot of crap, you can't do that.
Maybe on a more personal note, you won the Pulitzer Prize.
Yes.
Which is probably the most prestigious thing that can happen to a journalist.
It's all downhill.
Did it change your life?
Yeah, it changed my life in a few ways. One, my bosses had to be nicer to me. They didn't question my expense accounts so much. There was a gathering of 75th anniversary of the Pulitzer Prize, and there was a comedian making it. He said to all of us who were there, we had all won, he said, this is a very select group. Every one of us knows what the first 3 words of our obituaries will say. Yeah, look, you can't complain about it. There is some envy directed. People come and say, "Oh, I should have won it," but no, it's nice. It makes you feel good. It's the gift that keeps giving.
You got it because of foreign reporting on Ethiopia, as far as I understand. In the present circumstances, would you have been able to do it now?
No, that's a good question. I was assigned to do a story on the desertification of the Sahel. I would say most of the readers have no idea what that was, but the publisher was at a cocktail party and he heard about it. It was the zone under the Sahara Desert. The desert was moving southward. The trees were dying and so on. So it was affecting the way the people lived. It was sort of a drought. I took 6 months on that story. Spent a lot of money with the photographer. There's apps. I didn't even go overseas for a month or two. I was researching it. There's absolutely no way that the newspaper I work for would do that. In fact, when I was a judge in a contest of the Scripps Howard Foundation, and they had one called. I was working on the jury for something called the Ernie Pyle Award. Ernie Pyle was a journalist in World War II who was with the troops all the time, and he brought them to life, and the GI and the mud hole, that's what he wrote about. We read a few hundred submissions. There was nothing